A black CEO gets kicked off a plane without warning, but what he does next shakes the entire airline industry, costing them billions and rewriting the future of aviation. You won't believe how one act of disrespect led to a global revolution in the skies. Stay with this story till the end, because it only gets bigger, louder, and higher. The sun beat down on the tarmac at JFK Airport. A jet engine roared in the distance, drowning out chatter. Inside the terminal, the air was crisp, too cold for comfort. James Rowland, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar investment firm, adjusted his tailored navy blazer. His boarding pass trembled slightly between his fingers. He was not nervous. He was just eager to get home. First class. Flight 287 to San Francisco. As he approached the gate, a uniformed agent glanced at him, then at the boarding pass. Her smile faded. "Sir, step aside for a moment," she said, with clipped politeness. James blinked. The line moved past him. He watched a couple walk by, the woman clutching a Dior handbag, the man sipping a Starbucks latte. James cleared his throat. "Is there a problem?" he asked. The agent avoided his eyes. "Your seat has been reassigned," she said. Reassigned, a word that landed like a slap. James felt heat rise in his chest. He looked around. Passengers flowed like a river past him. Unaffected, he stood still. "Why?" he asked, slower this time. A second agent approached, taller, with a walkie-talkie buzzing at his hip. "It is a security matter," the man said. James's fingers clenched. Security? He reached for his wallet, pulled out his ID. The name gleamed. James E. Rowland. Founder. Investor. Visionary. The second agent barely glanced at it. "We need you to come with us." James was led down a quiet corridor. The carpet muffled his footsteps. The air grew stale. He passed closed doors, windows without views. In a sterile room, they told him he would not be flying today. No explanation, no apology, just a blank face and a printed voucher. The jet took off without him. He watched it vanish into the sky, through a smudged window. That night, James sat in his corner office, high above Manhattan. Rain streaked the glass like tears on steel. His assistant entered with trembling hands. "They called from the airline's corporate office," she whispered. He said nothing. He only stared at the glowing screen in front of him. The portfolio glared back, an account holding $5 billion in long-term investments, all backing the airline's future growth. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He typed a single command. Transfer initiated. Funds pulled. Within seconds, the company's stock began to bleed. News broke across every screen in the building. Massive divestment hits airline sector. No comment from James Rowland Capital. Phones rang. Emails surged in. But James sat still. The same stillness from the terminal returned. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. He answered. The voice on the line was shaky. "Mr. Rowland, we need to talk." He stood slowly. Rain pounded harder against the glass. "You should have talked to me before you called security," he said. The call ended. He looked at the city below. Lights blinked. Lives moved on. But for one airline, the descent had only just begun. His heart was steady now. Eyes sharp. The sky was wide open. He turned from the window. Every movement deliberate. His leather shoes echoed against the marble floor. The boardroom loomed ahead. Inside, 10 executives waited in silence, faces pale, eyes fixed on him. They had seen the headlines. James entered without a word, pulled out a chair. Saturday. Silence stretched like a rubber band. Then snapped. "Is it true?" one of them asked. James looked up slowly. He tapped the table. Once. "Yes," he said. "I pulled every cent." Gasps filled the room. Someone knocked over a water glass. It rolled, fell, shattered. "You know what this means," another murmured. James nodded. "It means they learn a lesson." A projector lit up. Slides appeared. Financials. Growth charts. Forecasts plunging like cliffs. He pointed. "This is the cost of disrespect." The youngest executive leaned forward, but it was just a gate agent. James cut him off. "No, it was the culture." It was a silence in the terminal. The way they walked past me like I was nothing. He pushed a slide forward. $5 billion speaks louder than apologies. He stood again. Prepare a press release. Use the word strategic redirection. And values alignment. He left the boardroom. His footsteps were faster now. Determined. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. He stepped inside. Pressed a button for the lobby. On the way down, the lights flickered. A storm brewed outside. Thunder cracked like a warning. His phone buzzed again. A different number. Same area code. He answered. Mr. Rowland, the voice said, "We are from the Airline's board. We were unaware of the incident." James said nothing. "We would like to make this right." He leaned against the elevator wall. "I do not want apologies. I want reform." Silence on the line. Then, hesitantly, "What would that involve?" He smiled faintly. "Training. Diversity in leadership. Accountability reports. And I want the names of the employees who made the call. We will see what we can do." "You will do it," he replied, "or I will ensure no one else invests in your future." The elevator doors opened. A burst of wind blew rain inside. His driver waited at the curb. The car door opened with a soft click. Inside, jazz played low. He gave a single nod. "Uptown." The driver pulled into traffic. Red lights gleamed on wet pavement. The city pulsed with late-night energy. His phone vibrated again. News alerts. James Rowland pulls /$5B. Airline faces major crisis. Diversity under fire in corporate travel. He scrolled. Images of him stepping off a plane, smiling with staff from another airline. He had options. Power did that. A call came in from his head of PR. "Sir, every major outlet wants a statement." He considered. "Release this," he said. "I was not treated like a customer. I was treated like a problem. And I do not fund problems." He ended the call. The car turned a corner. A mural flashed by, black excellence painted in bold colors. He stared at it, felt something deep in his chest shift. This was never just about money. It was about presence, about worth, about the quiet rules no one said aloud, but everyone followed. Back at his brownstone, he climbed the steps slowly, each one heavier than the last. Inside, the air smelled of sandalwood and memory. He poured a glass of bourbon, sat by the fireplace. Outside, lightning split the sky. Inside, a fire built steadily. In the hearth, and in him, he opened his laptop, typed an email. Subject: Initiative proposal, Airspace Equity Fund. He would do more than pull funding. He would create something better. Airlines that look like America, led by those two often overlooked. His fingers danced across the keys. Words sharp, vision clear. The silence in the house was thick, but not empty. It was a sound of resolve, of something vast taking shape. He had been made small at 38,000 feet. But now, he would rise higher than any plane. A new message pinged. This one from a young black pilot in training. "Saw what you did. Thank you. We are watching." James leaned back, closed his eyes, felt the weight of it all. Not crushing, but calling. This was no longer retaliation. It was revolution. And he was just getting started. Airlines would remember his name, not in a boardroom, but in every policy, every training manual, every flight manifest that dared to exclude. Tomorrow, he would call a meeting, not of investors, of innovators, dreamers, builders. He had the resources, the voice, the reason. The world would fly different because he had been grounded. The morning came gray and quiet. Mist curled against the windows of his study. The city outside was waking slowly, unaware of the shift already underway. James at the long oak table, laptop open, papers spread like wings. His team began to arrive. One by one, sleep still in their eyes, fire in their purpose. They filled the room with questions, with tension, with energy. Where do we start? What is the first move? Who do we bring in? James lifted his head. Everyone they overlook. They looked at him, Waiting, he looked back, steady. This is not just about airlines. This is about access, about ownership, about building our own runways. He clicked the remote. The screen lit up behind him. A slide appeared. Airspace Equity Fund. Phase 1. Silence fell again. They read, absorbed. Then slowly, heads began to nod. His COO leaned forward. You want to start an airline? No, James said. I want to start a movement. Another slide appeared. Small regional carriers. Training programs. Minority-owned aircraft maintenance companies. Airport contracts. Gate control. He pointed. Right now, they hold every door. We're going to build new ones. One assistant looked uncertain. But is that even possible? James stepped closer to the screen. Everything impossible is just something no one tried yet. Another team member spoke up. I know a black woman running a flight school in North Carolina. She has been trying to expand for years. Bring her in, James said. A hand rose. There's a Navajo-run charter service in Arizona. Small but serious. Bring them in. The energy shifted. Hope rising like dawn light through fog. Every name mentioned became a spark. Every story, a runway. By noon, the room buzzed. Whiteboards filled with names, dates, visions. Maps of airports across underserved regions. Spreadsheets of potential funding partners. And one name remained in bold at the top. James Rowland Capital. His phone vibrated. Again, the airline. He ignored it. Instead, he drafted a letter. Not to them. To federal regulators. Subject: propose incentives for minority-owned aviation enterprises. He laid out a plan. Data, projections, case studies. His words were precise. His tone unshakable. When it was done, he hit send, then stood. That is the first mile flown, he said. The team applauded softly. Not from politeness. From belief. That afternoon, calls came pouring in. From civil rights groups. From legacy pilots. From historically black colleges with aviation programs long ignored. Each one began the same. We saw what you did. How can we help? The movement had a name now. Project Takeoff. Social media exploded. Hashtags trended. Hashtag grounded but rising. Hashtag airspace for all. News outlets began digging deeper. The original airline's PR team flailed. Issued a second apology. Then a third. Then silence. By evening, James sat alone again. But this time, surrounded by momentum, he opened his journal. Wrote a single sentence. They tried to clip my wings. I decided to build a jet. That night, a new email arrived from a former airline executive, disillusioned, impressed, ready to help. He wrote back instantly. Let's talk. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. He barely slept, but it did not matter. The dream was bigger than fatigue. At sunrise, he was already dressed, coffee in hand, tapping through spreadsheets as birds cut through the sky outside his window. His calendar overflowed. Meetings with funders, architects, activists, tech teams, pilots. By noon, he had signed the first grant. A flight academy expansion in Atlanta. 20 new scholarships. All full ride. The CEO of a rival airline called next. James, maybe we should collaborate. James paused. Are you ready to change your boardroom? A pause on the other end. Then, I will have to get back to you. James hung up, smiled. He was not waiting for permission. He walked to his balcony, watched the plane glide overhead. It looked peaceful, silent, but he knew the noise behind it, the engines of change. Another email, this time from the Department of Transportation. Subject line, let's schedule a meeting. He forwarded it to his team, replied with 2 words. We're ready. The movement moved faster now. Each day built upon the last. Each win turned into a launch pad. They opened a headquarters in Atlanta, another in Detroit, then Oakland. He cut the ribbon at a new pilot simulator lab in Harlem. Young faces stared at him with wide eyes. One girl whispered to her brother, "That is the man who stood up to them." He knelt beside her. "You will not need to stand up to them," he said, because you will be leading them. A reporter caught the moment. The image went viral. James Rowland, smiling beside a 10-year-old in a flight jacket. Magazine covers followed, not for vanity, for visibility. Each article spoke of the same thing. Not vengeance, but vision. Not rage, but revolution. In one interview, he was asked, "Do you forgive them now?" James looked into the camera. "I thanked them," he said. "They reminded me how much still needs to change, and gave me the reason to do it." A full year passed, and the airline that kicked him off, it filed for bankruptcy, unable to recover from the PR disaster, from the lost capital, from the world that had moved on without them. And in their place, a new name filled the skies. Equijet, the first major air carrier founded on inclusion, boarded by all, led by many, built by those who had once been denied a seat. At its first international launch, James gave a speech, standing before a sleek, white aircraft, the logo shining like hope on the fuselage. He ended with this: "Some fly for business, some for pleasure. We fly for justice." And with that, he stepped aside, let a young black woman pilot climb the stairs, wave to the crowd, and take the captain's seat. The engines roared. The runway cleared. History lifted into the sky. The crowd watched in silence as the plane ascended. Children craned their necks, eyes wide with wonder. Reporters lowered their cameras. Caught in the moment, it was more than a launch. It was a statement. James stood still, not in awe of the plane, but in awe of the journey. Behind him, banners waved in the wind. Equijet, the future takes off with everyone on board. He stepped down from the stage. A journalist chased after him. "Mr. Rowland, what now? What comes next?" He paused. Now we fly farther. Back in his office at evening, the mood was electric. His team filled the room with champagne and laughter. But James sat with a different stillness. He looked at the wall, at the framed boarding pass from the flight he had been removed from, still wrinkled, still marked void. He kept it there, not as a grudge, as a reminder. He turned to his team. "Tonight we celebrate. Tomorrow we expand." Heads nodded. Laughter resumed. But his mind was already beyond the room, beyond the city, beyond borders. Africa, the Caribbean, South America, regions rich with talent, shut out from aviation infrastructure. He called us a start mapping underserved routes. She blinked. "International?" He nodded. "Global equity is the real altitude." 2 days later, they announced Project Horizon, a plan to create global connections between marginalized regions. Affordable, safe, frequent air service, piloted and staffed by locals. Applications flooded in. Young men and women from Ghana, Jamaica, Brazil, some with no flight hours, some with hundreds, all with the same hunger. He built scholarships again, training programs, translated materials, cross-cultural crew education. The press called it radical. His investors called it genius. Communities called it overdue. Construction began on 3 new regional hubs: Lagos, Kingston, Bogota. James visited each site personally, walked the dirt before it was tarmac, shook the hands of every worker. At one groundbreaking, a local boy asked him, "Sir, will you fly one of the planes?" James knelt down. "Maybe one day," he smiled, "but I built these for you." The boy grinned. "I will be ready." Back in New York, his team was busier than ever, but not overwhelmed. They were driven, no longer just corporate. Now they were a cause. The office walls bore photos of milestones: the first all-female flight crew, the first indigenous pilot graduation, the first flight to land in a village that had never seen a plane, each image framed in silver, each caption ending with the same words: "We rise together." Then came the lawsuit. The original Airline, the one that had removed him, filed for defamation, claimed financial sabotage, tried to spin a new story. James responded with one sentence at the press conference: "I do not fear the truth. I funded it." The case collapsed within weeks. Documents revealed years of systemic exclusion within the company, internal emails, training gaps, diversity reports buried or falsified. Their name became a cautionary tale in business schools. Meanwhile, Equijet soared. 1 year later, they unveiled the Sky Equity Index, a public report grading all major airlines on equity, inclusion, and access. No one asked them to. They just believed the industry should be accountable. Other companies took notice. Some pushed back. Others followed. Soon, transportation firms, cruise lines, even hotel chains requested guidance. James formed a new division, Elevate Consulting. They advise on access, representation, human-centered design. The work was massive, but he never once complained. One night, as he walked home, a woman stopped him, older, eyes sharp with memory. "James Rowland," she asked. He nodded. "My granddaughter flies for you." She said the cockpit felt like home. James smiled gently. "That is the goal." She touched his hand. "Thank you for not sitting down." He walked on. City lights blinking like stars that forgot to rest. In the coming months, they launched the Flight Forward Fellowship, a leadership pipeline, executive training, built for those often passed over. Then came Lifted, a program for underfunded schools near airports, STEM education, flight simulations, mentorship. Kids once scared to dream now asked how fast planes could go. How high? How far? James watched from afar. Let others lead now. His role became quieter, but no less present. He sat one day in a classroom in Newark, watching a 12-year-old girl land a virtual plane. Her face lit up. The class clapped. The teacher turned to him. "She wants to be like you." James shook his head. "She should be better." That night, a letter arrived from the White House, an invitation to speak about equity, about systems, about skies. He read it slowly, put it aside, not out of disrespect, out of focus. He had one more meeting that day, at a local airfield, with the first group of deaf pilots training through Equijet's new accessibility initiative. As he stepped onto the runway, the sun hung low, warm, golden. One of the pilots signed to him. A translator stood nearby. She says she never thought flying was for people like her. James looked at the plane, then back at her. "Tell her," he said slowly, "the sky does not ask for permission." She smiled, stepped up the ladder, took her seat. The engine spun. The propellers blurred. The runway cleared. James stood with hands in his pockets, eyes steady, watching another barrier break into wind. And somewhere inside, he felt again. Not rage, not vindication, but lift, quiet, steady, unstoppable, the kind that only comes when you do not just take off, you take others with you. The plane lifted gently into sky. A soft hum followed it upward, fading as it pierced the clouds. James remained still, eyes tracking its ascent until it vanished. Around him, the airfield was quiet. Gravel crunched underfoot as he walked slowly toward his car. The horizon stretched wide and golden, like an open page. He got in the back seat. No music, no calls, just silence and the weight of forward motion. His mind drifted back to the first day. The coldness of that gate, the impersonal voice saying, "Step aside." He remembered his heartbeat, the restraint in his voice, the choice he made to answer with action. Now his phone pulsed with updates. New pilot training center opens in Lagos. Equijet passes all safety audits with highest marks. Passenger satisfaction hits 97%. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathed in, held it, released it. There was still work to do. That night, at headquarters, the walls glowed with global clocks. Johannesburg, Seattle, Kingston, Mumbai, each tick a reminder of expansion, of rhythm, of reach. His team had grown, 100 strong, multilingual, multi-ethnic, multi-generational. At a round table, they met to discuss the next frontier: vertical takeoff aircraft, clean fuel sources, carbon offset programs in communities of color. James listened. Let others speak. He was not the loudest voice anymore. He did not need to be. A young strategist stood. She pointed at a map. Most regional flights pollute small towns without reinvesting in them. James nodded slowly. Let's change the formula, he said. Flight should not leave anyone behind. They began sketching plans for a circular investment model. Flight profits supporting school systems. Infrastructure. Clean water. Job training. The next slide showed a quote from James himself. Equity should move as fast as planes. The room clapped, but he only smiled faintly. He knew the applause was not for him. It was for what they were building. Later, walking to the research lab, he paused at a prototype, a drone taxi, silent, sleek, fully electric, designed by a team of Haitian and Filipino engineers. He touched the frame gently. The future was not coming. It was already here. One morning, he received a letter, handwritten, elegant cursive. It read, I was the gate agent. I am sorry. I have since left the company. I am learning. I want to do better. He folded the letter carefully, placed it in his drawer, not out of resentment, but reverence. People could change. Systems could evolve. And apologies could arrive, even if late. At an award ceremony that spring, he received the Global Inclusion Medal. He walked on stage to thunderous applause. The host handed him the plaque, gold-etched, heavy. He held it for a moment, then looked into the crowd. I do not accept this of myself, he began, but for every child who sat at an airport window and never saw themselves at the cockpit. Applause, flashes, cameras, but still that same stillness inside him. After the ceremony, a girl approached, 8 years old, braided hair, clutching a toy plane. Do planes have dreams too? She asked. James knelt down. They do, he said, but they need people to fly them. She nodded. I want to be one. He smiled. You already are. The next day, he flew commercial. No announcements. No first class. Just a middle seat. Back row. A young man beside him recognized him. Mr. Rowland? James turned, calm. The man extended his hand. Your story, it made me quit my job and become a flight instructor. James shook his hand. I am glad you answered the call. At 30,000 feet, he looked out the window. Clouds rolled below like soft hills. Sunlight sliced through the sky. He felt no tension, no fear, no memory of that humiliating day. Only peace. Later that year, Equijet announced its most ambitious project, the Skybridge Initiative, partnerships with rural airstrips, cargo access for small farms, passenger subsidies for medical flights. James visited one of the first completed hubs in Mississippi. An old dirt runway transformed. Kids lined up to tour the aircraft. Local vendors sold food nearby. An elder took his hand. Never thought I would live to see this. James looked around. Children touching dials, laughing in the simulator, families boarding without fear. You were never supposed to be left out, he said, and now you never will be. The local newspaper headline the next day read, The Man Who Made the Sky Ours. He laughed when he saw it, modestly, because he knew the truth. He did not give the sky. He just removed the locks. That evening, in his quiet home, he sat at his desk. No laptops, no noise, just pen and paper. He began writing a book, not a memoir, a blueprint. Title, Flight Patterns, Redesigning Access at Altitude. He wrote through the night, about silence in airports, about power in the unseen, about turning insult into infrastructure, about one seat denied, and how it became thousands reclaimed. As the sun rose, he paused, looked out his window. A plane cut across the sky, just a dot of silver. He closed the notebook, whispered one line to himself. We did not wait to be welcomed. We built the runway. And somewhere, another flight prepared for takeoff, staffed by those once ignored, piloted by those once doubted, carrying passengers who never again had to wonder if they belonged. The sky had changed, because one man chose not to sit down, but to rise and carry others with him.